Hey there. Hey, welcome in. I am Pika, I suppose. Hello. Oh boy. This is my first time streaming on this channel, reading stories. It's not quite perfect, is it? Um, I need to to fix some things regarding it. I think I need to size this down a bit. I think this needs to go. I would like to have a YouTube chat over here. Sorry, this is like um, all very confusing to me. Yeah, it's not the best stream, but it's a start, and that's all. Uh, I am gonna have the title of the book or the story. So let me open up my first one. I wanted to read a story called. Sorry, I need to find it now. I have it on my tablet, but it's charging, or my reading tablet. It's yeah. Uh, man, I'm really not prepared for this, am I? uh, that's her name, Charlotte Perkins Gilman. Charlotte Perkins. Gil. Oh, Gilman. Why is the M not working? I should prepare these things beforehand. But here you go. This is a start, you know. You gotta start somewhere, and this is where I start. Yeah. How do I resize this more efficiently? I honestly don't know. Transform. Fit to screen. Thank you. That is much smarter. Oh, that's good. Thank you. Where is that? The text. Story title. It doesn't need. Oh my god. Things I should have done before I started streaming for. I'll take that for 500, Alex. Um. This is my first time, so you'll have to pardon me that it's a bit low tech in nature. I will probably move the camera over for the next stream. So um, so I can easily. There we go. The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. It is very seldom that mere ordinary people like John and myself secure ancestral halls for the summer. A colonial mansion, a hereditary estate, I would say a haunted house, and reach the height of romantic felicity. But that would be asking too much of fate. Still, I would proudly declare that there is something queer about it. Else, why should it be let so cheaply? And why have stood so long untenanted? John laughs at me, of course, but one expects that in a marriage. John is practical in the extreme. He has no patience with fate. With faith, an intense horror of superstition, and he scoffs openly at any talk of things not to be felt and seen and put down in figures. John is a physician, and perhaps, I would not say it to a living soul, of course, but this is dead paper and a great relief to my mind. Perhaps that is one reason I do not get well faster. You see, he does not believe I am sick. And what can one do? If a physician of high standing and one's own husband assures friends and relatives that there is really nothing the matter with one but temporary nervous depression, a slight hysterical tendency, what is one to do? My brother is also a physician, and also of high standing, and he says the same thing. So I take phosphates or phosphites, whichever it is, and tonics, and journeys, and air, and exercise, and am absolutely forbidden to work until I am well again. Personally, I disagree with their ideas. Personally, I believe that congenial work with excitement and change would do me good. But what is one to do? I did write for a while in spite of them, but it does exhaust me a good deal, having to be so sly about it, or else meet with heavy opposition. I sometimes fancy that in my condition, if I had less opposition and more society and stimulus, but John says the very worst thing I can do is to think about my condition, and I confess it always makes me feel bad. So I will let it alone and talk about the house. The most beautiful place. It is quite alone, standing well back from the road, quite 3 miles from the village. It makes me think of English places that you read about, for there are hedges and walls and gates that lock, and lots of separate little houses for gardeners and people. There is a delicious garden. I never saw such a garden, large and shady, full of box-bordered paths, and lined with long grape-covered arbors with seats under them. There were greenhouses, too, but they are all broken now. There was some legal trouble, I believe. Something about the heirs and co-heirs. Anyhow, the place has been empty for years. That spoils my ghostliness, I'm afraid, but I don't care. There is something strange about the house. I can feel it. I even said so to John one moonlight evening. But he said that what I felt was a draft, and shut the window. I get unreasonably angry with John sometimes. I'm sure I never used to be so sensitive. I think it is due to this nervous condition. But John says if I feel so, I shall neglect proper self-control. So I take pains to control myself. Before him, at least, and that makes me very tired. I don't like our room a bit. I wanted one downstairs that opened on the piazza and had roses all over the window, and such pretty old-fashioned chintz hangings. But John would not hear of it. He said there was only one window and not room for two beds, and no near room for him if he took another. He's very careful and loving, and hardly lets me stir without special direction. I have a scheduled prescription for each hour in the day. He takes all care from me, so I feel basely ungrateful not to value it more. He said we came here solely on my account, that I was to have perfect rest and all the air I could get. Your exercise depends on your strength, my dear, said he, and your food somewhat on your appetite. But air you can absorb all the time. So we took the nursery at the top of the house. It is a big, airy room, the whole floor nearly, with windows that look all ways, and air and sunshine galore. It was nursery first, and then playground and gymnasium. I should judge, for the windows are barred for little children, and there are rings and things in the walls. The paint and paper look as if a boys' school had used it. It is stripped off, the paper, in great patches all around the head of my bed, about as far as I can reach, and in a great place on the other side of the room low down. I never saw worse paper in my life. One of those sprawling, flamboyant patterns committing every artistic sin. It is dull enough to confuse the eye in following, pronounced enough to constantly irritate and provoke study, and when you follow the lame, uncertain curves for a little distance, they suddenly commit suicide, plunge off at outrageous angles, destroy themselves in unheard-of contradictions. The color is repellent, almost revolting, a smoldering, unclean yellow, strangely faded by the slow-turning sunlight. It is a dull yet lurid orange in some places, a sickly sulphur tint in others. No wonder the children hated it. I should have hated it myself if I had to live in this room long. There comes John, and I must put this away. He hates to have me write a word. We have been here 2 weeks, and I haven't felt like writing before, since that first day. I am sitting by the window now, up in this atrocious nursery, and there's nothing to hinder my writing as much as I please, save the lack of strength. John is away all day, and even there's some nights when his cases are serious. I am glad my case is not serious. But these nervous troubles are dreadfully depressing. John does not know how much I really suffer. He knows there is no reason to suffer, and that satisfies him. Of course, it is only nervousness. It does weigh on me so not to do my duty in any way. I meant to be such a help to John, such a real rest and comfort, and here I am, a comparative burden already. Nobody would believe what an effort it is to do what little I am able, to dress and entertain and order things. It is fortunate Mary is so good with the baby. Such a dear baby. And yet I cannot be with him. It makes me so nervous. I suppose John never was nervous in his life. He laughs at me so about this wallpaper. At first he meant to repaper the room, but afterwards he said that I was letting it get the better of me, and that nothing was worse for a nervous patient than to give way to such fancies. He said that after the wallpaper was changed, it would be the heavy bedstead, and then the barred windows, and then that gate at the head of the stairs, and so on. You know the place is doing you good, he said. And really, dear, I don't care to renovate the house just for a 3 months rental. Then do let us go downstairs, I said. There are such pretty rooms there. Then he took me in his arms and called me a blessed little goose, and said he would go down cellar if I wished, and have it whitewashed into the bargain. But he is right enough about the beds and windows and things. It is as airy and comfortable a room as anyone need wish, and, of course, I would not be so silly as to make him uncomfortable just for a whim. I'm really getting quite fond of the big room, all but that horrid paper. Out of one window I can see the garden, those mysterious deep-shaded arbors, the riotous old-fashioned flowers and bushes and gnarly trees. Out of another I get a lovely view of the bay and a little private wharf belonging to the estate. There is a beautiful shaded lane that runs down there from the house. I always fancy I see people walking in these numerous paths and arbors, but John has cautioned me not to give way to fancy in the least. He says that with my imaginative power and habit of story-making, a nervous weakness like mine is sure to lead to all manner of excited fancies, and that I ought to use my will and good sense to check the tendency. So I try. I think sometimes that if I were only well enough to write a little, it would relieve the press of ideas and rest me. But I find I get pretty tired when I try. It is so discouraging not to have any advice and companionship about my work. When I get really well, John says we will ask Cousin Henry and Julia down for a long visit, but he says he would as soon put fireworks in my pillowcase as to let me have those stimulating people about now. I wish I could get well faster. But I must not think about that. This paper looks to me as if it knew what a vicious influence it had. There is a recurrent spot where the pattern lolls like a broken neck, and two bulbous eyes stare at you, upside down. I get positively angry with the impertinence of it and the everlastingness. Up and down and sideways they crawl, and those absurd, unblinking eyes are everywhere. There is one place where two breadths didn't match, and the eyes go all up and down the line, one a little higher than the other. I never saw so much expression in an inanimate thing before, and we all know how much expression they have. I used to lie awake as a child and get more entertainment and terror out of blank walls and plain furniture than most children could find in a toy store. I remember what a kindly wink the knobs of our big old bureau used to have, and there was one chair that always seemed like a strong friend. I used to feel that if any of the other things looked too fierce, I could always hop into that chair and be safe. The furniture in this room is no worse than inharmonious, however, for we had to bring it all from downstairs. I suppose when this was used as a playroom, they had to take the nursery things out. And no wonder. Oh, hang on. I need to check a thing. we go. There we go. The furniture in this room is no worse than inharmonious, however, for we had to bring it all from downstairs. I suppose when this was used as a playroom, they had to take the nursery things down, and no wonder. I never saw such ravages as the children have made here. The wallpaper, as I have said before, is torn off in spots, and it sticketh closer than a brother. They must have had perseverance as well as hatred. Then the floor is scratched and gouged and splintered. The plaster itself is dug out here and there, and this great heavy bed, which is all we found in the room, looks as if it had been through the wars. But I don't mind it a bit. Only the paper. There comes John's sister. Such a dear girl as she is, and so careful of me. I must not let her find my writing. She is a perfect and enthusiastic housekeeper, and hopes for no better profession. I verily believe she thinks it is the writing which made me sick. But I can write when she is out, and see her a long way off from these windows. There's one that commands the road, a lovely, shaded, winding road, and one that just looks off over the country, a lovely country, too, full of great elms and velvet meadows. This wallpaper has a kind of sub-pattern in a different shade, a particularly irritating one, for you can only see it in certain lights, and not clearly then. But in the places where it isn't faded, and where the sun is just so, I can see a strange, provoking, formless sort of figure that seems to sulk about behind that silly and conspicuous front design. There's sister on the stairs. Well, the 4th of July is over. The people are gone, and I am tired out. John thought it might do me good to see a little company, so we just had Mother and Nellie and the children down for a week. Of course I didn't do a thing. Jenny sees to everything now. But it tired me all the same. John says if I don't pick up faster, he shall send me to Ware Mitchell in the fall. But I don't want to go there at all. I had a friend who was in his hands once, and she says he is just like John and my brother, only more so. Besides, it is such an undertaking to go so far. I don't feel as if it was worthwhile to turn my hand over for anything, and I'm getting dreadfully fretful and querulous. I cry at nothing, and cry most of the time. Of course I don't when John is here, or anybody else, but when I am alone. And I am alone a good deal just now. John is kept in town very often by serious cases, and Jenny is good and lets me alone when I want her to. So I walk a little in the gardens or down that lovely lane, sit on the porch under the roses, and lie down up here a good deal. I'm getting really fond of the room in spite of the wallpaper. Perhaps because of the wallpaper. It dwells in my mind so. I lie here on this great immovable bed. It is nailed down, I believe, and follow that pattern about by the hour. It is as good as gymnastics, I assure you. I start, we'll say, at the bottom, down in the corner over where it has not been touched, and I determine for the 1000th time that I will follow that pointless pattern to some sort of conclusion. I know a little of the principle of design, and I know this thing was not arranged on any laws of radiation, or alternation, or repetition, or symmetry, or anything else that I ever heard of. It is repeated, of course, by the breadth, but not otherwise. Looked at in one way, each breadth stands alone. The bloated curves and flourishes, a kind of debased Romanesque, with delirium tremens, go waddling up and down in isolated columns of fatuity. But on the other hand, they connect diagonally, and the sprawling outlines run off in great slanting waves of optic horror, like a lot of wallowing seaweeds in full chase. The whole thing goes horizontally, too. At least it seems so, and I exhaust myself in trying to distinguish the order of its going in that direction. They have used a horizontal breadth for a frieze, and that adds wonderfully to the confusion. There is one end of the room where it is almost intact, and there, when the cross lights fade and the low sun shines directly upon it, I can almost fancy radiation after all. The interminable grotesques seem to form around a common center and rush off in headlong plunges of equal distraction. It makes me tired to follow it. I will take a nap, I guess. I don't know why I should write this. I don't want to. I don't feel able. And I know John would think it absurd, but I must say what I feel and think in some way. It is such a relief. But the effort is getting to be greater than the relief. Half the time now I am awfully lazy and lie down ever so much. John says I mustn't lose my strength, and has me take cod liver oil and lots of tonics and things, to say nothing of ale and wine and rare meat. Dear John, he loves me very dearly and hates to have me sick. I tried to have a real earnest, reasonable talk with him the other day, and tell him how I wish he would let me go and make a visit to Cousin Henry and Julia. But he said I wasn't able to go, nor able to stand it after I got there, and I did not make out a very good case for myself, for I was crying before I had finished. It is getting to be a great effort for me to think straight. Just this nervous weakness, I suppose. And dear John gathered me up in his arms and just carried me upstairs and laid me on the bed and sat by me and read to me till it tired my head. He said I was his darling and his comfort and all he had, and that I must take care of myself for his sake and keep well. He says no one but myself can help me out of it, that I must use my will and self-control and not let any silly fancies run away with me. There's one comfort. The baby is well and happy, and does not have to occupy this nursery with the horrid wallpaper. If we had not used it, that blessed child would have. What a fortunate escape. Why, I wouldn't have a child of mine, an impressionable little thing, live in such a room for worlds. I never thought of it before, but it is lucky that John kept me here after all. I can stand it so much easier than a baby, you see. Of course, I never mention it to them any more. I am too wise, but I keep watch of it all the same. There are things in that paper that nobody knows but me, or ever will. Behind that outside pattern, the dim shapes get clearer every day, It is always the same shape, only very numerous, and it is like a woman stooping down and creeping about behind that pattern. I don't like it a bit. I wonder. I begin to think. I wish John would take me away from here. It is so hard to talk with John about my case, because he is so wise, and because he loves me so. But I tried it last night. It was moonlight. The moon shines in all around, just as the sun does. I hate to see it sometimes. It creeps so slowly, and always comes in by one window or another. John was asleep, and I hated to waken him, so I kept still and watched the moonlight on that undulating wallpaper till I felt creepy. The faint figure behind seemed to shake the pattern, just as if she wanted to get out. I got up softly and went to feel and see if the paper did move. And when I came back, John was awake. "What is it, little girl?" he said. "Don't go walking about like that. You'll get cold." I thought it was a good time to talk, so I told him that I really was not gaining here, and that I wished he would take me away. "My darling," said he, "our lease will be up in 3 weeks, and I can't see how to leave before. The repairs are not done at home, and I cannot possibly leave town just now. Of course, if you were in any danger, I could and would, but you really are better, dear, whether you can see it or not. I am a doctor, dear, and I know. You are gaining flesh and color. Your appetite is better. I feel really much easier about you. I don't weigh a bit more. I don't weigh a bit more, said I, nor as much, and my appetite may be better in the evening when you are here, but it is worse in the morning when you are away. Bless her little heart, said he with a big hug. She shall be as sick as she pleases. But now let's improve the shining hours by going to sleep, and talk about it in the morning. And you won't go away? I asked gloomily. Why, how can I, dear? It is only 3 weeks more, and then we will take a nice little trip of a few days while Jenny is getting the house ready. Really, dear, you are better. Better in body, perhaps, I began, and stopped short, for he sat up straight and looked at me with such a stern, reproachful look that I could not say another word. My darling, said he, I beg of you, for my sake and for our child's sake, as well as for your own, that you will never for one instant let that idea enter your mind. There is nothing so dangerous, so fascinating to a temperament like yours. It is a false and foolish fancy. Can you not trust me as a physician when I tell you so? So, of course, I said no more on that score, and we went to sleep before long. He thought I was asleep first, but I wasn't. I lay there for hours trying to decide whether that front pattern and the back pattern really did move together or separately. On a pattern like this, by daylight, there is a lack of sequence, a defiance of law, that is a constant irritant to a normal mind. The color is hideous enough, and unreliable enough, and infuriating enough, but the pattern is torturing. You think you have mastered it, but just as you get well underway in following, it turns a back somersault, and there you are. It slaps you in the face, knocks you down, and tramples upon you. It is like a bad dream. The outside pattern is a florid arabesque, reminding one of a fungus. If you can imagine a toadstool in joints, an interminable string of toadstools, budding and sprouting in endless convulsions, why, that is something like it. That is, sometimes. There is one marked peculiarity about this paper, a thing nobody seems to notice but myself, and that is that it changes as the light changes. I need to get something to drink. I'll be right back. There we go. Thank you for waiting. Yeah. When the sun shoots in through the east window, I always watch for that first long, straight ray. It changes so quickly that I never can quite believe it. That is why I watch it always. By moonlight, the moon shines in all night when there is a moon, I wouldn't know it was the same paper. At night, in any kind of light, in twilight, candlelight, lamplight, and worst of all by moonlight, it becomes bars. The outside pattern, I mean. And the woman behind it is as plain as can be. I didn't realize for a long time what the thing was that showed behind, that dim sub-pattern. But now I am quite sure it is a woman. By daylight she is subdued, quiet. I fancy it is the pattern that keeps her so still. It is so puzzling. It keeps me quiet by the hour. I lie down ever so much now. John says it is good for me, and to sleep all I can. Indeed, he started the habit by making me lie down for an hour after each meal. It is a very bad habit, I am convinced, for, you see, I don't sleep. And that cultivates deceit, for I don't tell them I'm awake. Oh no. The fact is, I'm getting a little afraid of John. He seems very queer sometimes, and even Jenny has an inexplicable look. It strikes me occasionally, just as a scientific hypothesis, that perhaps it is the paper. I have watched John when he did not know I was looking, and come into the room suddenly on the most innocent excuses, and I've caught him several times looking at the paper. And Jenny, too. I caught Jenny with her hand on it once. She didn't know I was in the room, and when I asked her in a very quiet voice, with the most restrained manner possible, what she was doing with the paper, she turned around as if she had been caught stealing, and looked quite angry. Asked me why I should frighten her so. Then she said that the paper stained everything it touched, that she had found yellow smooches on all my clothes and John's, and she wished we would be more careful. Did not that sound innocent? But I know she was studying that pattern, and I am determined that nobody shall find it out but myself. Life is very much more exciting now than it used to be. You see, I have something more to expect, to look forward to watch. I really do eat better, and am more quiet than I was. John is so pleased to see me improve. He laughed a little the other day, and said I seemed to be flourishing in spite of my wallpaper. I turned it off with a laugh. I had no intention of telling him it was because of the wallpaper. He would make fun of me. He might even want to take me away. I don't want to leave now until I have found it out. There is a week more, and I think that will be enough. I'm feeling ever so much better. I don't sleep much at nights, for it is so interesting to watch developments, but I sleep a good deal in the daytime. In the daytime it is tiresome and perplexing. There are always new shoots on the fungus, and new shades of yellow all over it. I cannot keep count of them, though I have tried conscientiously. It is the strangest yellow, that wallpaper. It makes me think of all the yellow things I ever saw. Not beautiful ones like buttercups, but old, foul, bad yellow things. But there is something else about that paper. The smell. I noticed it the moment we came into the room, but with so much air and sun, it was not bad. Now we have had a week of fog and rain, and whether the windows are open or not, the smell is there. It creeps all over the house. I find it hovering in the dining room, skulking in the parlor, hiding in the hall, lying in wait for me on the stairs. It gets into my hair. Even when I go to ride, if I turn my head suddenly and surprise it, there is that smell. Such a peculiar odor, too. I have spent hours in trying to analyze it, to find what it smelled like. It is not bad at first, and very gentle, but quite the subtlest, most enduring odor I ever met. In this damp weather it is awful. I wake up in the night and find it hanging over me. It used to disturb me at first. I thought seriously of burning the house to reach the smell. But now I am used to it. The only thing I can think of that it is like is the color of the paper. A yellow smell. There is a very funny mark on this wall, low down near the mopboard, a streak that runs round the room. It goes behind every piece of furniture except the bed, a long, straight, even smooch, as if it had been rubbed over and over. I wonder how it was done and who did it, and what they did it for. Round and round and round, round and round and round. It makes me dizzy. I really have discovered something at last. Through watching so much at night, when it changes so, I have finally found out. The front pattern does move, and no wonder the woman behind shakes it. Sometimes I think there are a great many women behind, and sometimes only one, and she crawls around fast, and her crawling shakes it all over. Then, in the very bright spots, she keeps still, and in the very shady spots, she just takes hold of the bars and shakes them hard. And she is all the time trying to climb through. But nobody could climb through that pattern. It strangles so. I think that is why it has so many heads. They get through, and the pattern strangles them off and turns them upside down and makes their eyes white. If those heads were covered or taken off, it would not be half so bad. I think that woman gets out in the daytime. And I'll tell you why. Privately, I've seen her. I can see her out of every one of my windows. It is the same woman. I know, for she is always creeping. And most women do not creep by daylight. I see her on that long shaded lane, creeping up and down. I see her in those dark grape arbors, creeping all around the garden. I see her on that long road under the trees, creeping along. And when a carriage comes, she hides under the blackberry vines. I don't blame her one bit. It must be very humiliating to be caught creeping by daylight. I always lock the door when I creep by daylight. I can't do it at night, for I know John would suspect something at once. And John is so queer now that I don't want to irritate him. I wish he would take another room. Besides, I don't want anybody to get that woman out at night but myself. I often wonder if I could see her out of all the windows at once. But turn as fast as I can only see out of one at a time. Out of one at one time. And though I always see her, she may be able to creep faster than I can turn. I have watched her sometimes, away off in the open country, creeping as fast as a cloud shadow in a high wind. If only that top pattern could be gotten off from the under one. I mean to try it little by little. I have found another funny thing, but I shan't tell it this time. It does not do to trust people too much. There are only 2 more days to get this paper off, and I believe John is beginning to notice. I don't like the look in his eyes. And I heard him ask Jenny a lot of professional questions about me. She had a very good report to give. She said I slept a good deal in the daytime. John knows I don't sleep very well at night, for all I'm so quiet. He asked me all sorts of questions, too, and pretended to be very loving and kind, as if I couldn't see through him. Still, I don't wonder he acts so, sleeping under this paper for 3 months. It only interests me, but I feel sure John and Jenny are secretly affected by it. Hurrah! This is the last day, but it is enough. John is to stay in town overnight, and won't be out until this evening. Jenny wanted to sleep with me, the sly thing, but I told her I should undoubtedly rest better for a night all alone. That was clever, for really I wasn't alone a bit. As soon as it was moonlight, and that poor thing began to crawl and shake the pattern, I got up and ran to help her. I pulled, and she shook. I shook, and she pulled, and before morning we had peeled off yards of that paper. A strip about as high as my head and half around the room. And then when the sun came and that awful pattern began to laugh at me, I declared I would finish it today. We go away tomorrow, and they are moving all my furniture down again to leave things as they were before. Jenny looked at the wall in amazement, but I told her merrily that I did it out of pure spite at the vicious thing. She laughed and said she wouldn't mind doing it herself, but I must not get tired. How she betrayed herself that time. But I am here, and no person touches this paper but me. Not alive. She tried to get me out of the room. It was too patent. But I said it was so quiet and empty and clean now that I believed I would lie down again and sleep all I could, and not to wake me even for dinner. I would call when I woke. So now she is gone, and the servants are gone, and the things are gone, and there's nothing left but that great bedstead nailed down with the canvas mattress we found on it. We shall sleep downstairs tonight, and take the boat home tomorrow. I quite enjoy the room, now it is bare again. How those children did tear about here. This bedstead is fairly gnawed. But I must get to work. I have locked the door and thrown the key down into the front path. I don't want to go out, and I don't want to have anybody come in till John comes. I want to astonish him. I've got a rope up here that even Jenny did not find. If that woman does get out and tries to get away, I can tie her. But I forgot I could not reach far without anything to stand on. This bed will not move. I tried to lift and push it until I was lame, and then I got so angry I bit off a little piece at one corner, but it hurt my teeth. Then I peeled off all the paper I could reach standing on the floor. It sticks horribly, and the pattern just enjoys it. All those strangled heads and bulbous eyes and waddling fungus growths just shriek with derision. I'm getting angry enough to do something desperate. To jump out of the window would be admirable exercise, but the bars are too strong even to try. Besides, I wouldn't do it. Of course not. I know well enough that a step like that is improper and might be misconstrued. I don't like to look out of the windows even. There are so many of those creeping women, and they creep so fast. I wonder if they all come out of that wallpaper as I did. But I am securely fastened now by my well-hidden rope. You don't get me out in the road there. I suppose I shall have to get back behind the pattern when it comes night. And that is hard. It is so pleasant to be out in this great room and creep around as I please. I won't, even if Jenny asks me to. For outside you have to creep on the ground, and everything is green instead of yellow. But here I can creep smoothly on the floor, and my shoulders just fits in that long smooch around the wall, so I can lose my way. Why, there's John at the door. It is no use, young man, you can't open it. How he does call and pound. Now he's crying for an axe. It would be a shame to break down that beautiful door. John, dear, I said in the gentlest voice, the key is down by the front steps under a plantain leaf. That silenced him for a few moments. Then he said, very quietly indeed, open the door, my darling. I can't, said I. The key is down by the front door under a plantain leaf. And then I said it again, several times, very gently and slowly, and said it so often that he had to go and see. And he got it, of course, and came in. He stopped short of the door. What is the matter? He cried. For God's sake, what are you doing? I kept on creeping just the same, but I looked at him over my shoulder. I've got out at last, said I, in spite of you and Jane, and I've pulled off most of the paper, so you can't put me back. Now why should that man have fainted? But he did, and right across my path by the wall, so that I had to creep over him every time. Hang on a second. Hello. Yeah. This feels pretty nice. I like this. This is cozy. I'm I might I might bundle up a bit. How about that? I'm going to read a poem. I'm going to read a poem. I can remove this for now, right? I'm going to read a poem called In the Shadows by Leah Bodine Drake. It's one of my favorite poems from Weird Tales. Yeah. In the Shadows. As we went up the narrow stair, my candle slim and I, from the crouching shadows came a little tired sigh. And there was nothing on the stair or in my garret room but cobwebs on the rafters and corners filled with gloom. And still and silent was the house, and dark and still the air, but where the shadows wavered in the candle flare, something small, unearthly sighed out of some strange despair. Yeah, I like that. Um, let's see if I can find another story to read. Here's another. Yeah. Wait, what? No weird tales here? Are they gone? I hope not. File not available. I'm having hardware issues here. Do we have some other? Let me see here. I'm trying to. I thought I would have more weird tales on this, but they have disappeared, which is unfortunate. Yeah. Yeah. I will. I will have a look here. We'll see. Maybe I should take a short intermission. I think so. Hang on. Where is that? Pause. Hello. Oh, that's not right. That ain't right. That's okay. Hang on. Okay, I'm back. Hey, welcome back. Um, this is not, how you say, the best, um, oh, the best I've done when it comes to streaming. Yeah. Yeah. But, hey, here we go. We have another story here. I'm gonna read, this is a really, really dark story. Is this, I don't know which is which. There we go. Okay. This one is called The Closing Hand by Farnsworth Wright. Solitary and forbidding, the house stared spectre-like through scraggly trees that seemed to shrink from its touch. The green moss of decay lay on its dank roofs, and the windows, set in deep cavities, peered blindly at the world as if through eyeless sockets. So forbidding was its aspect that boys, on approaching its cheerless gables, stopped their whistling and passed on the opposite side of the street. Across the fields, a few huddled cottages gazed through the falling rain, as if wondering what family could be so bold as to take up its abode within the gloomy walls of that old mansion, whose carpetless floors for 2 years had not felt the tread of human feet. In an attic room of the house, two sisters lay in bed, but not asleep. The younger sister cringed under the dread inspired by the bleak place. The elder laughed at her childish fears, but the younger felt the spell of the old building and was afraid. I suppose there is really nothing to frighten me in this dreary old house, she admitted, without much conviction in her voice. But the very feel of the place is horrible. Mother shouldn't have left us alone in this gruesome place. Stupid, her sister scolded. With all the silverware downstairs, somebody has to be here for fear of burglars. Oh, don't talk about burglars, pleaded the younger girl. I am afraid. I keep imagining I hear ghostly footsteps. Her sister laughed. Go to sleep, Goosey, she said. Haunted houses are nothing but superstition. They exist only in imagination. Why has nobody lived here for 2 years, then? They tell me that for 5 years every family moved out after being here just a short time. The whole atmosphere of the house is ghastly. And I can't forget how the older Berkheim girl was found stabbed to death in her bed, and nobody ever knew how it happened. Why, she may have been murdered in this very room. Go to sleep and don't scare yourself with such silly talk. Mother will be with us tomorrow night, and Dad will be back next day. Now go to sleep. The elder sister soon dropped into slumber, but the younger lay open-eyed, staring into the black room, and shuddering at every stifled scream of the wind or distant growl of thunder. She began to count, hoping to hypnotize herself into drowsiness, but at every slight noise she started and lost her count. Suddenly she turned and shook her sister by the shoulder. "Edith, somebody is prowling around downstairs," she whispered. "Listen, oh, what shall we do?" The elder sister struck a match and lit the candle. Then she slipped on her dressing gown and drew on her slippers. "You're not going down there? Edith, tell me you're not going downstairs. It might be that murdered Berkheim girl. Edith, don't..." Edith shot a glance of withering scorn at her sister, who lay on the bed with blanched face and wide, terrified eyes. "There is something moving around downstairs, and I'm going to find out what it is," she said. Taking the candle, she left the room. Her younger sister lay in the darkness, listening to the pattering of rain on the roof and straining her ears to catch the slightest sound. The noise downstairs ceased, but the wind rose and the rain beat upon the roof in sudden, furious blasts that made her heart jump wildly. 10 minutes passed, 20 minutes, and Edith had not returned. A door slammed, and the younger sister thought she heard something moving again, but the wind began to sob and drowned out all other noises. Between gusts she heard the portentous sound, and each time it seemed nearer. Then she started as she realized that something was coming up the stairs. Once she thought she heard a cry to which the wind joined its plaintive voice in a weird duet. Nearer and nearer the strange noise came. It mounted the stairs, step by step, heard only when the wind and rain softened their voices. It passed the first landing and moved slowly up the second flight, while the girl fearfully awaited its coming. The wind howled until the house quaked. It shrilled past the eaves and fled across the fields like a hunted ghost. And now the girl's pounding pulses drowned out the screaming of the wind, for the presence had invaded her bedroom. She cowered under the covers, a cold perspiration chilling her body until her teeth chattered. Her imagination conjured up frightful things, a disembodied spirit come to destroy her, a corpse from the grave, gibbering in terror because it could not tear the cerements from its face, the murdered Berkheim girl with the knife still sheathed in her heart, or some escaped beast licking its lips in greedy anticipation of the feast her tremulous body would provide. Or was it a murderer who, having killed her sister, was now bent on completing his bloody work? A flash of lightning split the sky, and the thunder bellowed its terrifying warning. The girl threw back the bedclothes and shrank to the wall, her eyes starting from their sockets, fearful lest another flash reveal some sight too ghastly to contemplate. Slowly the being dragged itself across the floor, lifted itself onto the bed, and uttered a choking sound of agony. The girl sat petrified, Then, timorously, she extended a shaky hand, but quickly withdrew it in dread of some hideous contact. Again she thrust her trembling hand into the gloom, farther, farther, until it touched something shaggy and wet. A clammy hand closed over hers, and she started to her feet with a horrified scream. The icy hand tightened with a sickening tremor and dragged her down. Then her tortured senses gave way, and she fell back unconscious upon the bed. When she awoke, it was day. Beside her on the bed lay the bleeding body of her sister, Edith, stabbed in the breast by the burglar she had tried to frighten away. The younger girl was clutching the clotted wisps of hair that had fallen across the breast of her sister, whose cold hand had closed over hers in that last convulsive shudder of death. Oof. Bad. Yeah. One of the most terrifying ones, really, in the early weird tales. It affects me every time. Hmm. What should we do next? I do have more spooky poems. I think that's a good idea. Reading a poem between. This is a poem called Dear Ghosts by Clarence Edwin Flynn. It's also from Weird Tales. Dear ghosts I have that haunt my way, and yet I feel no fear. I count them friends and hold the day brighter that they are near. There are the ghosts of happy hours that long ago have fled, yet come like resurrected flowers to say they are not dead. There are the ghosts of hopes I prized, and thought them done in ore, returning though unrealized, as lovely as of yore. There are the ghosts of journeys done, long, long ago, but yet, despite the distance I have gone, I cannot quite forget. What was that noise? Or am I hearing spooky noises now? Hmm. I think I should try to find another weird tales from. I've read like the first, I don't know, 10 issues of Weird Tales maybe completely, and then I've read like various stories from other issues. I've read quite a bit, like probably 15 books worth, 20 books worth. A lot, but there's a lot. Like every Weird Tales is like a whole book. Those old pulp magazines used to be really, really quite thick. Yeah, here's a page that has... Oh no, it doesn't. Weird. I think I should try to look at Project Gutenberg then. They should have the public domain ones, I think, available. There's some very good ones in the... There's one from the second volume of Weird Tales. I think that's really, really quite something. Let me see if I can find it. Is it in that one, or is it in the third one, maybe? There's a lot that are like, two-parters, or even three-parters. Most of them, I think, are two-parters. Not most of the stories, but most of those kind of serial stories. Ooh, oh, this one is good. This one is good, yeah. Um, this one is called... This one is by Paul Sutter, and it's called Beyond the Door. There we go. Wait, can I? There we go. Paul Sutter, Beyond the Door. You haven't told me yet how it happened, I said to Mrs. Malkin. She set her lips and eyed me sharply. Didn't you talk with the coroner, sir? Yes, of course, I admitted. But as I understand, you found my uncle. I thought... Well, I wouldn't care to say anything about it, she interrupted with decision. This housekeeper of my uncle's was somewhat taller than I, and much heavier. Two physical preponderances which afford any woman possessing them an advantage over the inferior male. She appeared a subject for diplomacy rather than argument. Noting her ample jaw, her breadth of cheek, the unsentimental glint in her eye, I decided on conciliation. I placed a chair for her there in my Uncle Godfrey's study, and dropped into another myself. At least, before we go over the other parts of the house, suppose we rest a little, I suggested, in my most unctuous manner. The place rather gets on one's nerves, don't you think so? It was sheer luck. I claim no credit for it. My chance reflection found the weak spot in her fortifications. She replied to it with an undoubted smack of satisfaction. It's more than 7 years that I've been doing for Mr. Sarston, sir. Bringing him his meals regular as clockwork, keeping the house clean as he'd let me, and sleeping at my own home o' nights. And in all that time I've said over and over, there ain't a house in New York the equal of this for queerness. Nor anywhere else, I encouraged her with a laugh, and her confidences opened another notch. You're likely right in that too, sir. As I've said to poor Mr. Sarston many a time, it's all well enough, says I, to have bugs for a hobby. You can afford it, and Being a bachelor and by yourself, you don't have to consider other people's likes and dislikes. And it's all well enough if you want to, says I, to keep thousands and thousands of them in cabinets all over the place the way you do. But when it comes to pinning them on the walls in regular armies, I says, and on the ceiling of your own study, and even on different parts of the furniture, so that a body don't know what awful thing she's a-going to find under her hand of a sudden when she does the dusting, why then, I says to him, it's driving a decent woman too far. And did he never try to reform his ways when you told him that? I asked, smiling. To be frank with you, Mr. Robinson, when I talked like that to him, he generally raised my pay. And what was a body to do then? I can't see how Lucy Lawton stood the place as long as she did, I observed, watching Mrs. Malkin's red face very closely. She swallowed the bait and leaned forward, hands on knees. Poor girl, it got on her nerves, but she was the quiet kind. You never saw her, sir? I shook my head. One of them slim, faded girls with light hair and hardly a word to say for herself. I don't believe she got to know the next-door neighbor in the whole year she lived with your uncle. She was an orphan, wasn't she, sir? Yes, I said. Godfrey Sarston and I were the only living relatives. That was why she came from Australia to stay with him after her father's death. Mrs. Malkin nodded. I was hoping that by putting a check on my eagerness, I could lead her on to a number of things I greatly desired to know. Up to the time I had induced the housekeeper to show me through this strange house of my Uncle Godfrey's, the whole affair had been a mystery of lips which closed, and faces which were averted at my approach. Even the coroner seemed unwilling to tell me just how my uncle had died. Did you understand she was going to live with him, sir? Asked Mrs. Malkin, looking hard at me. I confined myself to a nod. Well, so did I, yet after a year back she went. She went suddenly? I suggested. So suddenly that I never knew a thing about it till after she was gone. I came to do my chores one day, and she was here. I came the next, and she had started back to Australia. That's how sudden she went. They must have had a falling out, I conjectured. I suppose it was because of the house. Maybe it was, and maybe it wasn't. You know of other reasons? I have eyes in my head, she said, but I'm not going to talk about it. Shall we be getting on now, sir? I tried another lead. I hadn't seen my uncle in 5 years, you know. He seemed terribly changed. He was not an old man by any means, yet when I saw him at the funeral, I paused expectantly. To my relief, she responded readily. He looked that way for the last few months, especially the last week. I spoke to him about it 2 days before it happened, sir, and told him he'd do well to see the doctor again. But he cut me off short. My sister took sick the same day, and I was called out of town. The next time I saw him, he was... She paused and then went on, sobbing. To think of him lying there in that awful place and calling for me, as I know he must, and me not around to hear him. I feel like I'm naturally doing some kind of accent for her. As she stopped again, suddenly, and threw a suspicious glance at me, I hastened to insert a matter-of-fact question. Did he appear ill on that last day? Not so much ill as... Yes? I prompted. She was silent a long time while I waited, afraid that some word of mine had brought back her former attitude of hostility. Then she seemed to make up her mind. I oughtn't say another word. I've said too much already. But you've been liberal with me, sir, and I think something you've a right to be told. Which I'm thinking no one else is a-going to tell you. Look at the bottom of his study door a minute, sir. I followed her direction. What I saw led me to drop to my hands and knees, the better to examine it. Why should he put a rubber strip on the bottom of his door? I asked, getting up. She replied with another enigmatical suggestion. Look at these, if you will, sir. You'll remember that he slept in his study. That was his bed, over there in the alcove. Bolts, I exclaimed, and I reinforced sight with touch by shooting one of them back and forth a few times. Double bolts on the inside of his bedroom door. An upstairs room at that. What was the idea? Mrs. Malkin portentously shook her head and sighed, as one unburdening her mind. Only this I can say, sir. He was afraid of something. Terribly afraid, sir. Something that came in the night. What was it? I demanded. I don't know, sir. It was in the night that it happened? I asked. She nodded, then, as if the prologue were over, as if she had prepared my mind sufficiently, she produced something from under her apron. She must have been holding it there all the time. It's his diary, sir. It was lying here on the floor. I saved it for you, before the police could get their hands on it. I opened the little book. One of the sheets near the back was crumpled, and I glanced at it idly. What I read there impelled me to slap the covers shut again. Did you read this? I demanded. She met my gaze frankly. I looked into it, sir, just as you did. Only just looked into it. Not for worlds would I even do that again. I noticed some reference here to a slab in the cellar. What slab is that? It covers an old dried-up well, sir. Will you show it to me? You can find it for yourself, sir, if you wish. I'm not going down there, she said decidedly. Ah, well, I've seen enough for today, I told her. I'll take the diary back to my hotel and read it. Oh, sorry. I did not return to my hotel, however. In my one brief glance into the little book, I had seen something which had bitten into my soul. Only a few words, but they had brought me very near to that queer, solitary man who had been my uncle. I dismissed Mrs. Malkin and remained in the study. There was the fitting place to read the diary he had left behind him. His personality lingered like a vapor in that study. I settled into his deep Morris chair and turned it to catch the light from the single narrow window. The light, doubtless, by which he had written much of his work on entomology. That same struggling illumination played shadowy tricks with hosts of wall-crucified insects which seemed engaged in a united effort to crawl upward in sinuous lines. Some of their number, impaled to the ceiling itself, peered quiveringly down on the aspiring multitude. The whole house, with its crisp head, rustling in any vagrant breeze, brought back to my mind the hand that had pinned them, one by one, on wall and ceiling and furniture. A kindly hand, I reflected, though eccentric, one not to be turned aside from its single hobby. When quiet, peering Uncle Godfrey went, there passed out another of those scientific enthusiasts whose passion for exact truth in some one direction has extended the bounds of human knowledge. Could not his unquestioned merits have been balanced against his sin? Was it necessary to even-handed justice that he die face to face with horror, struggling with the thing he most feared? I ponder the question still, though his body, strangely bruised, has been long at rest. The entries in the little book began with the 15th of June. Everything before that date had been torn out. There, in the room where it had been written, I read my Uncle Godfrey's diary. It is done. I am trembling so that the words will hardly form under my pen, but my mind is collected. My course was for the best. Suppose I had married her, she would have been unwilling to live in this house. At the outset, her wishes would have come between me and my work, and that would have been only the beginning. As a married man, I could not have concentrated properly. I could not have surrounded myself with the atmosphere indispensable to the writing of my book. My scientific message would never have been delivered. As it is, though my heart is sore, I shall stifle these memories in work. I wish I had been more gentle with her, especially when she sank to her knees before me tonight. She kissed my hand. I should not have repulsed her so roughly. In particular, my words could have been better chosen. I said to her bitterly, "Get up and don't nuzzle my hand like a dog." She rose without a word and left me. How was I to know that within an hour I am largely to blame? Yet, had I taken any other course afterward than the one I did, the authorities would have misunderstood. Again there followed a space from which the sheets had been torn, but from the 16th of July all the pages were intact. Something had come over the writing, too. It was still precise and clear, my Uncle Godfrey's characteristic hand, but the letters were less firm. As the entries approached the end, this difference became still more marked. Here follows then the whole of his story, or as much of it as will ever be known. I shall let his words speak for him, without further interruption. My nerves are becoming more seriously affected. If certain annoyances do not shortly cease, I shall be obliged to procure medical advice. To be more specific, I find myself at times obsessed by an almost uncontrollable desire to descend to the cellar and lift the slab over the old well. I never have yielded to the impulse, but it has persisted for minutes together with such intensity that I have had to put work aside and literally hold myself down in my chair. This insane desire comes only in the dead of night, when its disquieting effect is heightened by the various noises peculiar to a house. For instance, there is often a draught of air along the hallways, which causes a rustling among the specimens impaled on the walls. Lately, too, there have been other nocturnal sounds, strongly suggestive of the busy clamor of rats and mice. This calls for investigation. I have been at considerable expense to make the house proof against rodents, which might destroy some of my best specimens. If some structural defect has opened a way for them, the situation must be corrected at once. July 17th. The foundations and cellar were examined today by a workman. He states positively that there is no place of ingress for rodents. He contented himself with looking at the slab over the old well without lifting it. July 19th. While I was sitting in this chair late last night, writing, the impulse to descend to the cellar suddenly came upon me with tremendous insistence. I yielded, which perhaps was as well, for at least I satisfied myself that the disquiet which possesses me has no external cause. The long journey through the hallways was difficult. Several times I was keenly aware of the same sounds, perhaps I should say the same impressions of sounds, that I had erroneously laid to rats. I am convinced now that they are mere symptoms of my nervous condition. Further indications of this came in the fact that, as I opened the cellar door, the small noises abruptly ceased. There was no final scamper of tiny footfalls to suggest rats disturbed at their occupations. Indeed, I was conscious of a certain impression of expectant silence, as if the thing behind the noises, whatever it was, had paused to watch me enter its domain. Throughout my time in the cellar, I seemed surrounded by the same atmosphere. Sheer nerves, of course. In the main, I held myself well under control. As I was about to leave the cellar, however, I unguardedly glanced back over my shoulder at the stone slab covering the old well. At that, a violent tremor came over me, and, losing all command, I rushed back up the cellar stairs, thence to this study. My nerves are playing me sorry tricks. July 30th. For more than a week all has been well. The tone of my nerves seems distinctly better. Mrs. Malkin, who has remarked several times lately upon my paleness, expressed the conviction this afternoon that I am nearly my old self again. This is encouraging. I was beginning to fear that the severe strain of the past few months had left an indelible mark upon me. With continued health, I shall be able to finish my book by spring. July 31st. Mrs. Malkin remained rather late tonight in connection with some item of housework, and it was quite dark when I returned to my study from bolting the street door after her. The blackness of the upper hall, which the former owner of the house inexplicably failed to wire for electricity, was profound. As I came to the top of the second flight of stairs, something clutched at my foot, and for an instant almost pulled me back. I freed myself and ran to the study. August 3rd. Again the awful insistence. I sit here with this diary upon my knee, and it seems that fingers of iron are tearing at me. I will not go. My nerves may be utterly unstrung again. I fear they are, but I am still their master. August 4th. I did not yield last night. After a bitter struggle, which must have lasted nearly an hour, the desire to go to the cellar suddenly departed. I must not give in at any time. August 5th. Tonight, the rat noises, I shall call them that for want of a more appropriate term, are very noticeable. I went to the length of unbolting my door and stepping into the hallway to listen. After a few minutes, I seemed to be aware of something large and gray watching me from the darkness at the end of the passage. This is a bizarre statement, of course, but it exactly describes my impression. I withdrew hastily into the study and bolted the door. Now that my nervous condition is so palpably affecting the optic nerve, I must not much longer delay seeing a specialist. But how much shall I tell him? August 8th. Several times tonight, while sitting here at my work, I have seemed to hear soft footsteps in the passage. Nerves again, of course. Or else some new trick of the wind among the specimens on the walls. August 9th. By my watch, it is 4 o'clock in the morning. My mind is made up to record the experience I have passed through. Calmness may come that way. Feeling rather fatigued last night from the strain of a weary day of research, I retired early. My sleep was more refreshing than usual, as it is likely to be when one is genuinely tired. I awakened, however, it must have been about an hour ago, with a start of tremendous violence. There was moonlight in the room. My nerves were on edge, but for a moment I saw nothing unusual. Then, glancing toward the door, I perceived what appeared to be thin, white fingers thrust under it, exactly as if someone outside the door were trying to attract my attention in that manner. I rose and turned on the light, but the fingers were gone. Needless to say, I did not open the door. I write the occurrence down just as it took place, or as it seemed, but I cannot trust myself to comment upon it. August 10th. Have fastened heavy rubber strips on the bottom of my bedroom door. August 15th. All quiet for several nights. I am hoping that the rubber strips, being something definite and tangible, have had a salutary effect on my nerves. Perhaps I shall not need to see a doctor. August 17th. Once more I have been aroused from sleep. The interruptions seem to come always at the same hour, about 3 o'clock in the morning. I had been dreaming of the well in the cellar, the same dream, over and over, everything black except the slab, and a figure with bowed head and averted face sitting there. Also, I had vague dreams about a dog. Can it be that my last words to her have impressed that on my mind? I must pull myself together. In particular, I must not, under any pressure, yield and visit the cellar after nightfall. August 18th. I'm feeling much more hopeful. Mrs. Malkin remarked on it while serving dinner. This improvement is due largely to a consultation I have had with Dr. Sartwell, the distinguished specialist in nervous diseases. I went into full details with him, accepting certain reservations. He scouted the idea that my experiences could be other than purely mental. When he recommended a change of scene, which I had been expecting, I told him positively that it was out of the question. He said then that, with the aid of a tonic and an occasional sleeping draught, I am likely to progress well enough at home. This is distinctly encouraging. I erred in not going to him at the start. Without doubt, most, if not all, of my hallucinations could have been averted. I have been suffering a needless penalty for my nerves for an action I took solely in the interest of science. I have no disposition to tolerate it further. From today I shall report regularly to Dr. Sartwell. August 19th. Used the sleeping draught last night, with gratifying results. The doctor says I must repeat the dose for several nights, until my nerves are well under control again. August 21st. All well. It seems that I have found the way out, a very simple and prosaic way. I might have avoided much needless annoyance by seeking expert advice at the beginning. Before retiring last night, I unbolted my study door and took a turn up and down the passage. I felt no trepidation. The place was as it used to be, before these fancies assailed me. A visit to the cellar after nightfall will be the test for my complete recovery, but I am not yet quite ready for that. Patience. August 22nd. I have just read yesterday's entry, thinking to steady myself. It is cheerful, almost gay, and there are other entries like it in the preceding pages. I am a mouse in the grip of a cat. Let me have freedom for ever so short a time, and I begin to rejoice at my escape. Then the paw descends again. It is 4 a.m, the usual hour. I retired rather late last night after administering the draught. Instead of the dreamless sleep which heretofore has followed the use of the drug, the slumber into which I fell was punctuated by recurrent visions of the slab, with a bowed figure upon it. Also, I had one poignant dream in which the dog was involved. At length I awakened. And reached mechanically for the light switch beside my bed. When my hand encountered nothing, I suddenly realized the truth. I was standing in my study, with my other hand upon the doorknob. It required only a moment, of course, to find the light and switch it on. I saw then that the bolt had been drawn back. The door was quite unlocked. My awakening must have interrupted me in the very act of opening it. I could hear something moving restlessly in the passage outside the door. August 23rd. I must beware of sleeping at night. Without confiding the fact to Dr. Sartwell, I have begun to take the drug in the daytime. At first, Mrs. Malkin's views on the subject were pronounced, but my explanation of doctor's orders has silenced her. I'm awake for breakfast and supper, and sleep the hours between. She is leaving me each evening a cold lunch to be eaten at midnight. August 26th. Several times I have caught myself nodding in my chair. The last time, I am sure that, on arousing, I perceived the rubber strip under the door bend inward, as if something were pushing it from the other side. I must not, under any circumstances, permit myself to fall asleep. September 2nd. Mrs. Malkin is to be away, because of her sister's illness. I cannot help dreading her absence. Though she is here only in the daytime, even that companionship is very welcome. September 3rd. Let me put this into writing. The mere labor of composition has a soothing influence upon me. God knows I need such an influence now as never before. In spite of all my watchfulness, I fell asleep tonight, across my bed. I must have been utterly exhausted. The dream I had was the one about the dog. I was patting the creature's head over and over. I awoke at last to find myself in darkness and in a standing position. There was a suggestion of chill and earthiness in the air. While I was drowsily trying to get my bearings, I became aware that something was nuzzling my hand, as a dog might do. Still saturated with my dream, I was not greatly astonished. I extended my hand to pat the dog's head. That brought me to my senses. I was standing in the cellar. The thing before me was not a dog. I cannot tell how I fled back up the cellar stairs. I know, however, that as I turned, the slab was visible, in spite of the darkness, with something sitting upon it. All the way up the stairs, hands snatched at my feet. This entry seemed to finish the diary, for blank pages followed it, but I remembered the crumpled sheet near the back of the book. It was partly torn out, as if a hand had clutched it convulsively. The writing on it, too, was markedly in contrast to the precise, albeit nervous, penmanship of even the last entry I had perused. I was forced to hold the scrawl up to the light to decipher it. This is what I read. My hand keeps on writing in spite of myself. What is this? I do not wish to write, but it compels me. Yes, yes, I will tell the truth. I will tell the truth. A heavy blot followed, partly covering the writing. With difficulty I made it out. The guilt is mine only. I loved her too well, yet I was unwilling to marry. Though she entreated me on her knees, though she kissed my hand, I told her my scientific work came first. She did it herself. I was not expecting that. I swear I was not expecting it, but I was afraid the authorities would misunderstand, so I took what seemed the best course. She had no friends here who would inquire. It is waiting outside me door. I feel it. It compels me through my thoughts. My hand keeps on writing. I must not fall asleep. I must think only of what I am writing. I must... Then came the words I had seen when Mrs. Malkin had handed me the book. They were written very large. In places the pen had dug through the paper. Though they were scrawled, I read them at a glance. Not the slab in the cellar. Not that. Oh my God, anything but that. Anything. By what strange compulsion was the hand forced to write down what was in the brain, even to the ultimate thoughts, even to those final words? The gray light from outside, slanting down through two dull little windows, sank into the sodden hole near the inner wall. The coroner and I stood in the cellar, but not too near the hole. A small, demonstrative, dark man, the chief of detectives, stood a little apart from us, his eyes intent, his natural animation suppressed. We were watching the stooped shoulders of a police constable who was angling in the well. "See anything, Walters?" inquired the detective raspingly. Oh, that was not so raspingly. The policeman shook his head. The little man turned his questioning to me. "You're quite sure?" he demanded. "Ask the coroner. He saw the diary," I told him. "I'm afraid there can be no doubt," the coroner confirmed in his heavy, tired voice. He was an old man with lackluster eyes. It had seemed best to me, on the whole, that he should read my uncle's diary. His position entitled him to all the available facts. What we were seeking in the well might especially concern him. He looked at me opaquely now, while the policeman bent double again. Then he spoke, like one who reluctantly and at last does his duty. He nodded toward the slab of gray stone, which lay in the shadow to the left of the well. "It doesn't seem very heavy, does it?" he suggested in an undertone. I shook my head. "Still, it's stone," I demurred. "A man would have to be rather strong to lift it." "To lift it, yes." He glanced about the cellar. "Ah, I forgot," he said abruptly. "It is in my office as part of the evidence." He went on, half to himself. "A man, even though not very strong, could take a stick, for instance, the stick that is now in my office, and prop up the slab, if he wished to look into the well," he whispered. The policeman interrupted, straightening again with a groan and laying his electric torch beside the well. "It's breaking my back," he complained. "There's dirt down there. It seems loose, but I can't get through it. Somebody will have to go down." The detective cut in. "I'm lighter than you, Walters." "I'm not afraid, sir." "I didn't say you were," the little man snapped. "There's nothing down there anyway, though we'll have to prove that, I suppose." He glanced truculently at me, but went on talking to the constable. "Rig the rope around me, and don't bungle the knot. I've no intention of falling into the place." "There is something there," whispered the coroner, slowly to me. His eyes left the little detective and the policeman, carefully tying and testing knots, and turned again to the square slab of stone. "Suppose, while a man was looking into that hole, with the stone propped up, he should accidentally knock the prop away." He was still whispering. "A stone so light that he could prop it up wouldn't be heavy enough to kill him," I objected. "No," he laid a hand on my shoulder, "not to kill him, to paralyze him. If it struck the spine in a certain way, to render him helpless, but not unconscious. The post-mortem would disclose that, through the bruises on the body." The policeman and the detective had adjusted the knots to their satisfaction. They were bickering now as the details of the descent. "Would that cause death?" I whispered. "You must remember that the housekeeper was absent for 2 days. In 2 days, even that pressure." He stared at me hard to make sure that I understood. "With the head down?" Again the policeman interrupted. "I'll stand at the well if you gentlemen will grab the rope behind me. It won't be much of a pull. I'll take the brunt of it." We let the little man down with the electric torch strapped to his waist and some sort of implement, a trowel or a small spade, in his hand. It seemed a long time before his voice, curiously hollow, directed us to stop. The hole must have been deep. We braced ourselves. I was second, the coroner last. The policeman relieved his strain somewhat by snagging the rope against the edge of the well, but I marveled nevertheless at the ease with which he held the weight. Very little of it came to me. A noise like muffled scratching reached us from below. Occasionally the rope shook and shifted slightly at the edge of the hole. At last the detective's hollow voice spoke. "What does he say?" the coroner demanded. The policeman turned his square, dogged face toward us. "I think he's found something," he explained. The rope jerked and shifted again. Some sort of struggle seemed to be going on below. The weight suddenly increased, and as suddenly lessened, as if something had been grasped, then had managed to elude the grasp and slip away. I could catch the detective's rapid breathing now, also the sound of inarticulate speech in his hollow voice. The next words I caught came more clearly. They were a command to pull up. At the same moment, the weight on the rope grew heavier and remained so. The policeman's big shoulders began straining rhythmically. "All together," he directed. "Take it easy. Pull when I do." Slowly the rope passed through our hands. With each fresh grip that we took, a small section of it dropped to the floor behind us. I began to feel the strain. I could tell from the coroner's labored breathing that he felt it more, being an old man. The policeman, however, seemed untiring. The rope tightened suddenly, and there was an ejaculation from below, just below. Still holding fast, the policeman contrived to stoop over and look. He translated the ejaculation for us. "Let down a little. He's stuck with it against the side." We slackened the rope until the detective's voice gave us the word again. The rhythmic tugging continued. Something dark appeared, quite abruptly, at the top of the hole. My nerves leapt in spite of me, but it was merely the top of the detective's head, his dark hair. Something white came next. His pale face with starting eyes. Then his shoulders bowed forward, the better to support what was in his arms. Then I looked away, but as he laid his burden down at the side of the well, the detective whispered to us. "He had her covered up with dirt. Covered up." He began to laugh a little, a high cackle like a child's, until the coroner took him by the shoulders and deliberately shook him. Then the policeman led him out of the cellar. It was not then, but afterward, that I put my question to the coroner. "Tell me," I demanded, "people pass there at all hours. Why didn't my uncle call for help?" "I have thought of that," he replied. "I believe he did call. I think Probably he screamed, but his head was down and he couldn't raise it. His screams must have been swallowed up in the well. You're sure he didn't murder her? He had given me that assurance before, but I wished it again. Almost sure, he declared, though it was on his account and undoubtedly that she killed herself. Few of us are punished as accurately for our sins as he was. One should be thankful, even for crumbs of comfort. I am thankful. But there are times when my uncle's face rises before me. After all, we were the same blood. Our sympathies had much in common. Under any given circumstances, our thoughts and feelings must have been largely the same. I seem to see him in that final death march along the unlighted passageway, obeying an imperative summons, going on step by step, down the stairway to the first floor, down the cellar stairs, at last lifting the slab. I try not to think of the final expiation, yet was it final? I wonder, did the last door of all, when it opened, find him willing to pass through? Or was something waiting beyond that door? Nova! Welcome in. What it do? I need to use the little Picus room. So, hopefully my sound is okay. It's hard to know. Yeah. Okay, I will be right back. We're doing a short break. I just need to use the little Picus room, so to speak. The little gobsmacking room. Yeah. And I need something to drink, and I'll be right back. Okay. Hello again. There we go. Paul Sutter, Beyond the Door. That's not what we're listening to right now. It's intermission. I like that they have these little news stories in Weird Tales that I find amusing. Has Tut's tomb really been found? The opening of King Tutankhamun's tomb, with its attendant worldwide publicity, has brought upon the head of Lord Carnarvon and his brother Egyptologists a good deal of sharp censure. Professor W.A. Hammond, Dean of Cornell University, deeply deplores the motive that leads men like Lord Carnarvon to show such irreverence for dead men's bones. Other critics declare that the Englishman and his party waxed over-enthusiastic, and that their discovery, after all, wasn't as important as they thought it was. I don't know. I'm not going to read the whole article, but I find them amusing that they have them in the... Let's see. We have Volume 1, Number 3. Let's see if there is anything in this that I remember. There's... Oh, there's a couple of strange ones, actually. Right by each other. Penelope and the Purple Heart are both kind of just weird. There's also, hang on, let me see. This one actually doesn't have that many really good ones in it. I think they skipped number 3 of Volume 1. Kind of. And then Volume 4, I think, has some really good stuff in it, if I recall correctly. They have the... oh, let's see. Do they? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm thinking of another one. Oh, they have a kind of amusing one. The Man the Law Forgot. I don't think I'm going to read that. I will summarize it for you. It's about a man who dies and therefore isn't guilty. Supposedly. It's not. Yeah. Volume... Do they have Volume 2? Weird Tales, Volume 2 of 2? Let me see here. Oh no. Oh, this is like a compilation. Okay. Probably not that then. Oh, there's a bunch that are like... Oh man, someone has like collected all the Lovecraftian stuff, which is, I don't know, a noble goal, perhaps. Yeah. It's really too bad, by the way. There's in the first volume of Weird Tales, the first H.P. Lovecraft story is right next to a really, really good like werewolf story. Um, by, or I don't know if I want to call it a werewolf story even. It's a spooky kind of full moon story. It has elements of a werewolf story, I suppose. I don't know. One of these days I will read it. Maybe not right now. Let me see if I can find more issues of Weird Tales on Project Gutenberg, or if you have to like look at the separate stories, because I like having them like on a just HTML page. You know. Nope. I don't think so. Yeah. I have a whole collection of stories by Robert Bloch, one of H.P. Lovecraft's friends, I suppose. He has like a weird kind of story of sci-fi and horror. It's an anthology, and everything has kind of a bit of a punchline at the end. Yeah. Sorry. Should I read one of the H.P. Lovecraft ones, maybe? I can. Oh, that's right. Henry Kuttner is one of the ones that he made a lot of good ones, I think, in the early Weird Tales and similar magazines. Henry Kuttner, what did he wrote? Who was it that what's the name of the guy I just read? Paul Sutter. He has also written a couple other ones. And then there's Rudd? Not Paul Rudd. Anthony M. Rudd, I think. Wrote a very good one. Let me see if I can find in a on a non-Gutenberg page more. Volume 2, number 1. Is that a thing I can open? Persistent Archive of Complete Issues. Oh, is this the one? Oh, I kind of recognize some of these. The one problem with like the early, especially Edwin Baird issues of Weird Tales, is that he was kind of like extra racist. I don't like reading those so much. For obvious reasons, perhaps. Where's this? Volume 2, number 2. Could be in that one. I kind of want to read the Anthony M. Rudd one. Well, one of them. There's also, oh, there's several. Anthony M. Rudd. Oh no, not in this one. Oh yeah, this one though. Wait, this doesn't seem to work as it should. Sorry, let me see here. The Teakwood Shrine, I think. Let me see if I can find it. The damned thing. Hey, Farnsworth, another Farnsworth Wright one. Here's the thing about Farnsworth Wright is, oh wow, these are not very legible. Damn it. Damn it. Sorry about that. Cheers. Yeah. I don't know what I can show here. Oh, it doesn't really show. Oh, you can see like that. Uh-huh. Oh, okay. Sorry. I'm like all over the place. I can't really read these. That's the problem. Wait a minute. No. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. Weird Tales. Sorry, this is like me being very unprepared, I guess, for this. Yeah. I might end early. Let's... I think maybe that's what I'll do. Yeah. Yeah. What time is it? It's 7:30. It's not really that late yet. It's not really that late yet. I don't know. What's it called? Square of canvas, I think. I'm not good at typing. Next time I might be better prepared. Anthony Rudd? Kind of an unpleasant story. It is a very... Yeah. Wait, it is... Volume 1. What? It is on Project Gutenberg. And it is supposed to be in volume 2. This story. This is a horrific story. A square of canvas. Hmm. It is in this one. What? Maybe I'll do that next time. Is anyone still here, even? I think I will read that next time. So, let me do, honestly, yeah. I'm gonna read. Hmm. Yeah. I'm gonna read, Disillusionment. Illusionment? Disillusionment. That's how you pronounce it, right? By Victoria Bowdoin Johnson. Slow moving from the tomb of years, unbidden shadows come to me. I greet them with a hollow voice, nor hide the tears that they must see. We muse on all that might have been, too well we know how strange it seems. That age, the ghost of yesterday, communes with shades of perished dreams. You who have faith and youth and love cannot discern this spectral host. Too dazed with hope you cannot see these shadows talking to a ghost. Yeah. Thank you for hanging out with me today. I will probably do other streams, I guess. I might, I don't know. Excuse me. I don't know. We will see how I do. But thank you for being here. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. Take care of yourself.